Come keep it icy with our brand new Frosty Horns tutorial. Spiky bits. What's up, hobby maniacs? Rob Baer back again with you today, and it's Frost Lord time. Well, actually not Frost Lord. We painted this guy up on camera right here. Today we're going to show you how to get that awesome frosty horn effect that you can apply to anything out there under the sun, from your little bird peoples to zinch peoples to, I don't know, heck, you could even use them for tree peoples. The sky is literally the limit when it comes to this stuff here. Now, we may be painting some of these up live on Twitch. I don't know, but make sure you follow us over there on twitch.tv/SpikyBitsTV, because you never know what we're going to be working on and what we're going to be giving away any particular day. The Long War is in full effect. Over there we have myself and, of course, the ancient Chinese master himself, Kenny Boucher, Slow Fuse, as well as Iron-Headed, all day, every day, and the legendary author of Graveyard Shift, Mike Haspel. So without further ado, let's jump right into this tutorial and find out how to keep it icy on our models. So today it's Ice Ice Baby, and to kick it off, we're going to be using some GW KANTOR Blue, which you can see right here. Now this color, all the air colors, maybe I should do a tutorial on using the air colors, because you use them a completely different way than what we've shown you here on this channel, also what Kenny has shown you over on Next Level Painting. Basically, you just add them to the pot. They're so thin that you really don't want to add much else as far as flow improver or anything like that. You can see right there, it's pretty thin. I mean, I might add in just a little drop of flow improver or something just to get it going, but for the most part, I mean, it's just going to come right out and boom, you're good to go. Now, when it comes to painting, I've showed you where we use brushes and we put stuff onto, we actually brush the paint on, kind of like we did here with the bone effects from the stone horns. But now we're going to basically paint on the blue ourselves. But there's parts that we're not going to paint it on, like stuff like this banner right here. We're just going to get in here and we're going to shoot it. Just open it up and just hose it down, get that nice base coat going, because that's what we want. And it's way easier to just do this than take out the brush and do brush stuff. But stuff like the stone horn right there, it's way easier to use the brush to hit the areas up towards the top that would interfere with some of the work we've already done there, because I've actually done the blend, done the fur blend, done the wash, done the dry brush, and gone in there with the bone and base coated the bone, because we're going to airbrush that too. So there's two different trains of thought there when you're doing this stuff. Now I also have the little blood blizzard guy, which I'm actually going to do. I'm going to paint him up straight up ice too, because he's, you know, I figured these guys would blend in with their environment. So we're just gonna hose him down, and that just makes it a lot easier than going in with your brush, you know. Tell you what, I'm a little stir crazy myself because of the whole hurricane, but that just came through. I'm just happy to be. I was actually sitting down to airbrush right when the power went out, so I'm glad I wasn't halfway through it. And then we got this Pokemon bird too that we're gonna be doing on here, and I'll show you these guys at the end with the fades. You know, so you can basically get an idea of what you can do with both versions of painting it on or just airbrushing it on, because that sometimes is what it's all about. The path of least resistance. I actually went back to my original vision of what I was going to do, and I remembered that I was going to have it be part gray and then kind of go into the frozen kind of fade thing here and do some of this stuff up here in metal. So I went in and I base coated with, what is this thing here? MECHANICUS Standard Gray, which is a great base color, I guess very similar to the old Codex Gray of yesteryear there. So, and then I painted in the KANTOR right there, and I think for the rest of this I'll be able to get KANTOR in here nice and easy. At least that's my plan, because I'm going to start about right here where you can see the difference. So that basically is going to get us in here all base coated up, ready for the second fade. So I am going to use the airbrush. to create that base coat right in there and up here on the horn. And just get a nice lay down of these colors, come back and fade it with that gray a little bit towards the top. But you can see there that I've got lots of wide open space, so I'm not gonna kind of mess with anything up here. Now on this top horn right here is kind of a different story, because it actually looks like I might be able to get it all. So I'm gonna try it. Just get in here without any overspray on anything important. Just hosing it down right there. So you kind of get the idea. You want to try to work as less as possible on these sprays. Get your good angles and everything like that to get in there and work it all up. So I'm going to finish this base coat, come back, and we're going to start the first transition. Now that that's all done, you can kind of see what we're working with here. Like we got the base coat all done up here, all the way around and down there. And now it's time for the second coat, which is going to be this very bright LOTHERN blue from Citadel Air as well. Now, like I said, you don't really have to add much to it. It's already pretty thin there. You can kind of see it's I'm just going to blow it out here, get some of this stuff going. It's pretty thin paint already, so it's very easy to use. So now we're just going to kind of cut in and work some of these angles. Adjust my valve control here. There we go. Got to get some good flow going. So we're just going to get in here and work some of these angles, starting about halfway down and fading up towards the tip there. Kind of see what's going on here. Starting to look a little icy, right? What I wanted to do was try to keep like some of it towards the top and some of it towards, like, have like kind of spot highlights almost, like kind of like what you see there. But I also want to get the fades in too, so I don't want to get too crazy with it. But there's so much surface area to work with here that it might be pretty possible. Now I don't know on this little inside here, but we're just gonna kind of mess around with it and really see what happens. But right there you kind of get the idea of what we're looking for. Just some really solid highlights, kind of concentrated in a couple places, but with some overspray too to keep the fade going. Now I'm going to get in here and nug the rest of it out. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but we'll come back and show you what I got here in a sec. Here you can see the rest of the highlights. Now it's kind of going for that very stark, very icy looking, very I guess contrasty kind of look with my highlights here. So I sectionalized them off, and I think you can see the effect there that I was going for. I'm very happy with it, but I know in the back of my mind that when I come back in and cut in with the KANTOR blue, I'm gonna have to add some black to it, because going over a lighter color, it's just gonna make a shade instead of a transition or a contrast, so to speak. So there you can see that that is all going according to plan. Now the next highlight, so we went from LOTHERN blue. The next highlight up is going to be ULTHUAN gray, another airbrush paint. So you don't have to do too much prep work, just make sure your airbrush is clean from there. Now it's going to be a very light, almost this color right here. Actually, I think it is the same color that is right here. So it's going to be very stark going into there, and it's going to create that crazy ice contrast that I'm really hoping is exactly what I want. So this will be this is the big show right here. That's this next one, right? So we're gonna come in and mix up a pot of this stuff. Looks like you can definitely tell there that it's very light, very easy going right there, and just spray some down. And now we're just gonna come in and we're gonna hit even more sectionalized, kind of just the tips, so to speak, of these highlights than what we hit with the LOTHERN. So basically just very short, controlled highlights, just to get that icy look right there, boom. And we are going to come in with a glaze at the end, of course, and try to bring it all together. But right there you can kind of see it doesn't look it, but then when you compare it to everything else, it's definitely there. So we want to make sure we just get the very edge of all of this to not really mess anything up, and then you can always just hit the air on your airbrush just to dry things off. Now what's cool about this ULTHUAN gray also is that it's not a white. It's a gray. So you can actually come in and do all the hyper highlighting and everything with a white paint, and it'll show up over this gray. So eventually we're gonna hit some you know, some hyper highlights on these stark edges right here and really make that kind of icy blocky kind of look come to life, either before or after the glaze. I haven't really decided yet, kind of playing it by ear as I go in here. So I'm gonna go through and hit the rest of these highlights here, but I'm not gonna bore you with it and show you all this stuff, but basically you kind of get the idea here how it's all gonna go. You really just want to hit just the tips right there to really make this transform and pop into a really good looking kind of ice sculpture kind of thing. So there are the ULTHUAN gray highlights. You can tell they definitely really make this thing pop, kind of almost make it look like an icicle, but there's still a little bit of overspray, which we're going to get off with the glaze. But before that, I want to do some cutbacks with, like I said, we're going to take the KANTOR blue. We're going to add a little bit of black to it. Any black, airbrush black is fine. We're going to get in there and kind of create a little bit more definition where there might be a little too much overspray, like up here on this horn, and really do some work there. So I've got my airbrush all ready to go with some paint in it. And we're going to get in here and create that definition that we need. So basically just going right towards the middle. Boom. Really creating that separation now. And you can really see it start to pop now. Granted, it's all going to blend together more with the glaze, but for right now, we're just kind of doing a little bit of extra work for the glaze. Now up here where all this this horn into actual kind of stone, I don't know, I guess, what do you call that, like membrane or something? I don't even know. We're gonna kind of cut into that too, because we want there to be that separation before we get to the gray. So it's gonna pull back this these highlights a little bit, but I feel like it's still a little okay because the wash is gonna get in there and do that work. So there's all that. Now remember, we're gonna edge it too, so that's really gonna make all of that pop. Where it might have gone a little dingy, it's still okay, but we just don't want, you know, a lot of this overspray in here to kind of take away from the effect, I guess, basically. Like up here in the middles, you know, kind of coming down into this, gotta work the airbrush a little bit. Let's see, kind of coming down into here a little bit, really working those angles, getting that spread. Because remember, if you just use normal KANTOR black, it wouldn't work because it would look too light over these white highlights, right? So you just want to make sure that you're going in there using the right mixes into things to get it done. And we're just going to go through, we're just going to cut it all back and show you what it looks like after that. Okay, so we cut it all back and it looks fantastic. Now the next step is just hitting it with some SIMI-GLOSS varnish from Model Masters. Let's see if I have a bottle handy. I know I showed it to you guys a couple of times. Here we go. So we got the SIMI-GLOSS varnish. They're the small cans from Model Masters, super easy to get. I'm gonna go hose it down, let it dry overnight, come back and do some glazes on it here in the next frame. So it's been a hot minute since we got that SIMI-GLOSS coat on here, and now it's time to give this a glaze and bring it all together and make it pop with the rest of the model. And to do that, we're going to use DRAKENHOF Nightshade, which is like a dark blue kind of shade slash wash. GW changes what they call these things all the time, but it's just basically a wash. Now we're going to make a glaze out of it, which is just basically a thin down wash using an acrylic medium, of course. So we're just going to take about 2 drops of the DRAKENHOF, boom, dump it right into there, and then we're going to take our 50-50 mix of Future Floor Wax, or Pledge with Floor Wax, or Pledge with Future, depending on what it's called in your area. I don't even know what this stuff's called anymore, but it's basically stuff you mop your floor with. Look up Pledge or look up Future and you can find it. We're going to fill this up to the middle hole on this little water cap right here. And now what this is going to do after we mix it up is give us that glaze effect that's going to really make stuff pop. And I got another bottle cap right here, and I want to show you guys. So basically when we pull, you can see that now it's translucent, and you can see right through it. It's not dark like it looks in here, it's actually translucent. And that's what's going to bring all of this together here. Kind of shade it down a little bit, get it more in line with what the models are, but maybe more importantly is that it's going to kind of pull it into the grays here and work up into the gray a little bit to really make that transition. So like I said, we're just using a big flat chisel right here, and all you do is you just go in and you work one area at a time. So I'm going in, I'm hitting all of this gray right here and pulling it all the way back, going underneath. You can see I got a lot of material there to work with, so I'm going to dab off my brush and pull this stuff back here. And now you can kind of see that it's starting to pull up in a lot of areas, but that's okay. We're going to work it. This is one of those things I'm going to dab off the brush a little bit, but still keep it kind of moist. This is one of those things you got to work at area by area. I'm not going to just slap it on here and try to 360 arc all this stuff. I'm going to do one section at a time until it dries to completion, and well, mostly completion, and just kind of keep working it in here. Now you can see where it's got the definition, and I just pulled it away, so I'm going to add a little bit more and get back in there. You want to keep it a little thick, but you don't want it to get to the point where you can't work with it anymore, or that there's just too much in there, and it starts pooling when there's too much. When there's just enough, there's no pooling, which you can kind of see back here. It almost looks like there's the perfect amount on this backside right here. See how it starts to get in the cracks, but it's also covering flat and it's not pooling. And check the bottom right there, kind of the same deal. So this looks to be pretty good thus far for me. I'm happy with this. So I'm just going to kind of let it work itself into drying, and I'm going to hit this area up here while I'm kind of waiting for it to dry, because it's small enough that I can work it and not have to super worry about this getting out of hand and not being able to cover both areas. So there it is. I hit it all, gave it a nice deep coat where it started getting in all those cracks. Yeah, this is looking good. Okay, so you can kind of see what we're working with right there. And now it's just keeping an eye on it as it dries. You can have a fan going. I got a little fan right here that I'll probably kick on, and I'll just kind of sit here and watch it, just kind of wait for it to dry, work it a little better so it doesn't clump or accidentally run off. Now if it does, it's very easy to fix, because remember, we semi-gloss this model. So you either take your finger, put a little bit of spit on it, get in there and erase it like mom used to do on your cheeks, right? And if it dries splotchy, you can erase it. If it's being a little stubborn, you can take the same brush you're using here, dab this off with clean water, and get in there and kind of go like that back and forth on it. And what that'll do is that'll break up that messed up, drying, splotchy area to the point where you can actually probably take your finger or take the brush itself that still has some residuals and spread it out and make another nice easy coat and work that back up. So all is not lost if you mess up the glaze at this point, but it is one of those things. See right here, it's starting to get a little splotchy. It is one of those things that you need to keep an eye on, because if you just let this stuff dry all willy-nilly, you will have a mess on your hands. You'll be going and fixing things. So just kind of have some air circulating. It helps with the dry time. You don't necessarily have to do directly on it, but you do want to get in there and work it as best you can. So I'm going to work the other two tusks here, and then we're going to come back and take a look at it and talk a little bit more about this ice effect. So the work is complete. The ice effect is pretty much done. It's just except for some hyper highlighting with some white, but you can see there it really brings out the pop in it and the contrast. Here's the other Beastclaw Raider, or I guess I forget what these guys are called. Not the Stonehorn. Well, whatever these Thunder Tusks. The other Thunder Tusk, and you can see here in side by side that this one on the right with the airbrush just looks a little too pastel-y, but the one on the left that we've we've glazed definitely looks a lot cooler and more contrasty. So I'm digging the one on the left. So the only step that's left is doing some hyper highlights. So we got to give this a little bit more time to dry before we get in there and start working some of those fine edges with some white. Actually, we might use ULTHUAN. I'm not exactly sure. I'm gonna tinker around with it a bit, see what I like, but very close to being done with the ice effect. So I got the color I like. We are using the ULTHUAN Gray Citadel. I've got a super tiny layer brush here, and all I'm doing is just putting some of this paint down on a palette and twisting the tip to make that nice fine tip right there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to hit some intersections to really make it look like an ice effect, that this horn is really made of ice at this point. So we're just going to get in here and we're just going to use the very sharpest of edge, and we're just going to hit the very raised edges. We're not going to do the whole thing. We're not going to get crazy with it because it's going to look like Tron. But we just want to hit these raised edges here and really get in. This is actually hard for me to do, to try to make sure you guys got the good angle there. So we're only going to do one of these because this is a little hard to do for me. And see the edge. It's very important that you're getting that edge there when you're dragging this across. And it's very hard for me to do and show you at the same time. But you kind of get the gist there. You just have to get in there and get your eyes on it very good. And then from far away, you know, it looks like, you know, a corner of ice, an ice block, like crystal, basically crystallified ice. Kind of right there. So these are a little fatter than what I'd like. So I'm just going to kind of come in here and erase it a little bit. But you got to be careful, because if you erase it too much with your finger and a little saliva, that you'll get underneath to the wash and that'll come out. So I'm going to get it to a point where I feel like I can work it back and get in here and work it myself. So that's a little fat, but that's okay. Like I said, it was hard for me to get that angle right, but I think you get the idea. And after I finish with that, you'll be able to see the whole thing and kind of get the idea a little bit more. So there it is, the finished product, all hyper highlighted up with lots of definition given off and contrast right there. It almost looks like real ice, almost. Now the rest of the model isn't finished yet. Heck, I'm missing quite a bit of it, as you can see here. So it needs to get finished up and do all the details up here in the face and work on some of this bone here. I was gonna airbrush it, but I think I'm just gonna do a wash and a couple of hyper highlights there, just to not overdo the whole airbrush thing on this front of the face here. And of course, got to get in there and do all the teeth, and can't have no cavity creeps up in his grill. No sir. So, and get in here and do all the metal. So hopefully by the time this video drops, we'll have a little picture or two of the finished product to put in there, so you can kind of get an idea of how it makes the whole project look overall. So now you could always hyper highlight first and then glaze over it if you wanted. In this case, because it's ice and I really wanted it really stark and contrasty, I decided to do it second. But there's two schools of thought right there, so don't forget that either. So that's it for this one, folks. I hope you enjoyed my how to paint realistic ice on your models tutorial.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.